your host, HC, and with me are...
Wolf.
And Jaya.
And life is like a hurricane yet again because we are back with Season 2 of Ducktales 2017. And before you say anything, yes, we do know that Season 3 ended, but we are not jumping the gun just yet. We'll talk about that next week because we want to cover Season 2 before, and Season 2 is great.
It is.
You probably had a discussion about Season 1 last time, so yeah, Season 2 is even better. Wolf, you are the newbie. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, the first season, it had me interested, but it didn't, it got me interested enough to want to see Season 2, but it didn't really win me over, right? Not completely, I feel. But watching through Season 2, I think it absolutely won me over. I think they nailed it out of the park with Season 2, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Also, Season 2 has my favorite episode of the entire show, and we will get to it later.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess this is all the non-spoiler stuff we can actually talk about and say that it's great. Shall we move on to spoilers?
Yes, let's hit the spoilers. Are we going to talk about any Season 3 spoilers or no?
No. Let's avoid Season 3 spoilers because Wolf hasn't seen it as well. So,
yeah, I've not seen it yet.
That's fair.
So Scrooge dies. I'm kidding.
I mean...
You're not wrong.
Supposedly. So yeah, but spoilers for Season 2 of DuckTales from this point on. You're still here? Good. So, Episode 1. By the way, just like Season 1, some of the episodes aired a bit out of order. We are covering them as the Wikipedia page shows them, which is the canonical order, but as stated by the show's creators. So, this is what we're going with. If it's different than the airing order, blame the mouse. We are just doing as the creator says. Anyway, Episode 1, the most dangerous game night. I love this one. What a great way to open after the action heavy, emotion heavy season finale. This was a great way to start.
Indeed. And the episode starts with Louis saying he's getting tired of dangerous adventures, and he points out they've become predictable. They have an ooh, oh wait, what, and an ah. And Scrooge tries to disavow the notion, only for those exact things to happen while they're in an Indiana Jones-style temple. But actually, the Scrooge and Mcduck and the others inspired Indiana Jones, so this is sort of retroactive.
Yeah,
and just
knowing the show's creators, maybe that was the intention.
Agreed. And just as Scrooge wants to go on another adventure, Louis is desperate to just stay in the manor for one night and not court any disaster, especially after finding out about what happened to his mother. So he begs Scrooge for game night, which Beakley and Duckworth, no.
Yeah, Beakley and Duckworth are like, oh no, but Scrooge is like, game night, he's really into it. And I love how when they pair up, he pairs up with Donald for whatever reason because he knows how unlucky Donald is. So, not the smartest strategy of
at first.
Yeah, and then he actually tells Donald, "If we lose, you're out of the wheel." And Donald's like, "I was in the wheel."
But surprisingly enough, they managed to trounce everyone else at game night despite Donald's bad luck.
Yeah,
and we.
By the way, I love one thing. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the previous season, but I love how we get more of the connection between Dewey and Webby. They are a good match.
They are.
Not necessarily in the shipping area, people.
No.
Just putting it out there.
I love how you felt the need to clarify.
Because people do that.
Yeah, well, Rule 34, people. Rule 34.
Okay, no, Rule 34 is like the aftermath of the shipping. It's not the shipping itself.
Yeah. But could you imagine how the episode would have been different if Scrooge had taken Louis' offer for make your own pizza night?
You know something? I'm sure that it would be different, but the same amount of fun, honestly.
I agree.
And so game night is happening, and it goes wrong at some point. But I will say that despite of it, this is a really good episode for Louis. I really liked Louis in this episode.
I loved, right,
Indeed.
we come back to the second season, right? And the second season, the first episode is about how each of the boys kind of pulls something from their mom, right? In terms of adventuring. And Louis very much looking around like, I have nothing. I'm not good at adventure. I'm lazy. I have nothing in common with mom. I'm nowhere near as good as her. And you get to the end of it all, and Scrooge tells him, hey, you take back after your mom, even back after me, because, you finally hear Scrooge finish that old, smarter than the smarties, tougher than the toughies, and sharper than the sharpies. It's a good little moment because he actually tells Louis that, if you keep up at this and stick with it, you could very well be a richer billionaire than me, which is a big step for Scrooge, kind of in the background a little bit of him saying someone could potentially be richer than him one day, compared to last season where, oh, you'll be as rich as me maybe, or close to, but you won't be as good as me, or you won't be better than me,
And it also sets an interesting arc for Louis in this season, where he actually tries to make his own business and make his own mark, I would trust this guy with a business. Obviously I'll give him a few more years of experience before I do, but still.
Indeed.
So yeah, I really like this episode for Louis, and just the adventure in general. The fact that they when they pull out the shrink ray and they do all the interesting stuff you can do with a shrink ray and how you can walk with it. It was fun.
I mean,
Indeed.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, right, to hear and to see them play with like the voice actors of Gyro and Launchpad being small and you not being able to see any of what's going on, but so you have to just imagine it, and it's very much like it's their voice work that kind of sells what's going on and what's happening. Like, I gotta give them credit for that. They did really good with that. Like, that was really unique and interesting and really enjoyable, right? Because it's kind of it becomes more of theater of the mind at that point. It was really interesting to see that with the show. A lot of shows would just flip to them being like small and dealing with whatever's going on at that moment, but they don't do that. You just have to kind of imagine what's going on and what things look like until you finally get to the end of the episode where you see everyone as tiny.
Agreed, and they are not alone.
But one small thing I like when we mentioned Dewey and Webby's friendship, but I like when they do the charades. And Webby is the one giving Dewey doing the charades, and when he doesn't get it, she's like, "Really? You can understand what Donald is saying, but you didn't understand this." Again, it's one of those things that people really don't understand them in universe as much as we think, but at the same time, it was funny. I like that. I like that analogy.
Indeed.
So
also, how about Scrooge and Donald's chimera impersonation during charades, though?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would have got it. If I were playing, I would have said so. So with that said, episode 2, The Depths of Cousin Federy, which an alternate title, Oh Hi Tom Kenny.
Indeed. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
I'm not. Wow, that's surprising that you made that reference and not me.
Me too. I blame you for showing me the SpongeBob musical and getting me into it.
Hey, you liked it. I am not to blame for anything. For inside joke, but yeah. But as soon as I heard him for the first time, I was like, "That sounds like Tom Kenny." You reach the credits, like, "Oh yeah, it is awesome." But this was a fun one, not a great one, but a fun one.
I like how
yeah,
he still lives under the sea, and he lives in a yellow submersible under the sea. So, like, I swear, and they do this again with another character, and I swear they do it on purpose, right? where like, oh, this person has voiced insert popular character here. Let's kind of reference that a little bit. I swear they do it on purpose. There's no way it's not on purpose.
They do.
There's no
They
way.
do.
I refuse to believe it.
No, it's definitely on purpose.
Mhm.
There's a whole Scrooge short with a time machine.
Yeah, I
And
was
so-
about to mention it. There's
Oh.
a short. There was a short before the show officially premiered where Louis finds that Scrooge has a time machine in his house, and Scrooge tries to warn him, like, no, it's a time machine.
Mhm.
Indeed. And we
So-
all know David Tennant was a good doctor.
Oh,
And there's
yeah.
a reason why he got that nickname Ducktor when he ended up on the show.
I never
But-
heard about that. That's amazing.
Another Wander Over Yonder I'm watching with HC now. There is going to be an episode where they reference Tom Kenny, who plays Commander Peepers,
Oh my
playing
god.
the narrator on Powerpuff Girls. We haven't gotten to it yet, but it's going to be fun.
You mentioned Peepers, aka the best character in that show. If you're watching it, you know what I mean.
Yep, Peepers for MVP.
And-
But also, how about Launchpad's many girlfriends or ex-girlfriends?
Yeah, of all the people, I wouldn't expect him, but I guess he has a car, and that's
He has a plane. Thank you very much.
yeah, okay, yeah, he is a pilot, so you
No,
know
but
something.
I love.
Imagine like Launchpad going on Tinder or something, and all his bio
God.
says is "I'm a pilot."
I mean,
That's
it would though. It would though. He absolutely would.
Rap zone people. If Disney had Tinder,
Oh
that
God.
was a freebie joke. You're welcome.
Oh God.
Thanks
Yup.
for putting that in my head.
But
The show did it first.
getting back to the depths of Cousin Feathery, episode 2.
Yeah, sorry.
This is, it's a fun episode. I don't think there's anything to really write home about this one. It's just, hey, here's, Cousin Feathery, and we get to see him a bit and what's kind of going on there a little bit. And that's more or less,
Though-
it is, a Huey-focused episode, which is fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Huey needs a lot of love.
On that note, jumping the gun a bit, I like how this creature comes back later on in the season.
Yep.
Because I was like, oh, that's a filler episode. And then it's like, oh no, this thing actually serves a purpose. Nice. Woo.
Did.
Anyway, episode 3. The Ballad of Duke Balloony. I love this one. This is great. This is such an awesome take about the whole amnesia storyline. And I
Yes.
love it. Because
And
it's
also about Glomgold.
because it's like Glumgold has amnesia. Like just that sentence. So many joke opportunities, and they go for all of them. That's amazing.
I also, again, like Glomgold's, past, right, and getting to see a little bit of his backstory and how Scrooge tried to do for him what his dad and someone else, tried to do for him, and Glomgold's like,
Yeah.
no, you're being cheap. Screw you. And that's just, and he takes that and goes way too far. Which,
Yeah.
again, that's Glomgold's MO, though, taking something and going way
Yeah.
overboard with it.
Which
But
again,
on the other hand, he's got a point, because when Scrooge was getting his dime, it motivated him to work hard, but also a dime was worth more at the time. When
Mhm.
Scrooge meets Glomgold, giving an American dime to a South African shoe shiner and we're going to assume, say, the 1950s or the 1960s would be cheap.
Yeah.
And so it feels like Scrooge didn't check the price tag. Scrooge had the right idea, but it was definitely the wrong execution.
Mhm.
yeah. Which again, but it's interesting to show just how different they are because, in a sense, both of their experiences being shoe shines changed their life. But Scrooge took that penny as I'm going to work hard, and this is how I make my fortune. While Glumgold took it as I won't let people underestimate me, and that's how he made his fortune. So again, kind of like they're basically two sides of the same coin, pun,
Agreed.
kind of intended.
Yes. The creators at least said that even if Scrooge had been nice to Glomgold, it wasn't in his personality to become a Scrooge in the spirit of it. He's obviously Scrooge in the sense of trying to be Scottish, wearing a kilt and all that, and
Yes.
trying to gain the love of everyone in Duckburg while being rich. But he lacks that heart that Scrooge
Also,
has.
if I may say, don't get me wrong, I love David Tennant and everything, but Glumgold's voice actor kills me. Something about the way
Yes.
he talks and kills me. Also,
He's
I'm
a
not
lot
sure
of
if
fun.
you've seen it. I think
Yes.
around the time this aired, there was Disney uploaded to their YouTube channel like a version of Glumgold singing the TV, like the Ducktales theme, and it's amazing. Just it's amazing for all the best and wrong reasons. Just look it up if you can. And
Agreed.
and this also sets something up for the future of the series, which is Scrooge and Glumgold having a bet on who can be richer by the end of the year, and the winner gets the loser's company. And
Yeah.
No, that's later.
No, it's this episode. They make a bet at the very end.
It's in this episode where they set it up.
Was it? I thought it was. Oh no, you're right. Never mind. That's yeah. Okay, so yeah, it was this one, right, where it felt like it ended in a kind of like very short, very quick way, right? It felt like they make the bet and then that's it. It felt like there was going to be a little. It felt like there should have been. I don't know. I feel like the bet just feels kind of tacked on a little bit at the end of this one, especially considering nothing comes from it for quite some time, right?
Well, but that's just because it's the start and they have 20-something episodes to
fill.
Sure,
right.
I'm not necessarily justifying it, but at the same time, it's like you need to realize they do say by the end of the year, so they do give you the.
Oh no, I get it. It's just for me personally, right? This episode kind of felt like it just ends very abruptly, almost like that's it. All right, moving on to the next thing. It's just I don't know if like. I would say, right, this is, while a strong episode, its ending just kind of feels off to me personally. That's it.
Okay, that's well. So moving on to episode 4, the town where everyone was nice, and aka the Three Caballeros, the episode. And I must say that Jaya and I rewatched the Three Caballeros in order to prepare for this podcast. And I must say, this episode doesn't represent the movie well, because obviously they didn't do the same amount of cocaine as the movie animators did. So I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, not a faithful representation at all. But
no kidding.
It gets some of the spirit.
But that's a good thing.
We didn't get the three like Donald, Jose, and Panchito's heads on live action women bodies dancing back and forward. So I'm sorry, the episode is ruined.
Listen, the 1940s were a different time, man.
Yeah.
Okay, but jokes aside, I do like that they actually brought mention to it. Like it's one of those things that you wouldn't necessarily expect, because not a lot of people are aware of the Three Caballeros. So it's nice that they actually brought it back. And I know there's another show about them, but that
Legend of the Three Caballeros.
True, but at the same time, it's not something that was before this. It aired simultaneously. So it's nice to see like this reference to one of the very early animated Disney movies, and like that people don't really remember. So good on you, show. I like that reference.
I do also like that Donald's both embarrassed, and you can see why, because if the kids knew that he spent one of his birthdays chasing around girls in Mexico while blindfolded and trying to murder one of his friends using a hedge, a fire, and a saw, he would probably not live that down. But it's almost a bit of a leaning on the fourth wall that Donald used to be very different. In this show, he's a protective parent. He's angry for the right reasons. And he's very competent if his family's in danger.
Yeah.
But not so much in the Vintage Age. In the Vintage Age, he was a troublemaker, and when he was a parent, he was often either not good at it, or he refused to be the parent.
Though honestly, I think if Three Caballeros the movie took place in the same universe as this, Della probably blackmailed him with that footage at some point. I'm willing to bet
Yes.
you.
I'm sure she did.
But again,
Like, if the movie was an acid trip during one of Donald's
God.
rehearsals with Jose and Pancho, that would explain a lot.
But
I do love the fact that you bring up like them using a lot of the past of Donald's character as like, oh, that was his wild past, and he's changed as he's gotten older, and especially when he had to take care of Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Right? I do love how they used that in this way.
Indeed.
And it's also,
just a fun
because at this point in time, there's no Daisy in this show, so it makes sense that that movie happened at an earlier point of his life.
No, completely, yeah. Looking at this episode specifically, again, it's another fun one. Like, this is more of a Donald-focused episode with a bit of Huey.
I'm all for Donald-specific episodes where he also has the classic voice. So I'm all for that. And I also like how he basically asks Scrooge to tell him, listen, tell them I'm the billionaire. And there's a point where Scrooge fakes that his eyes are not working as well, and he's like, Donald, is that you? And he uses the opportunity to slap Donald. And it's like, yeesh, man, I know you're bitter, but help you out. Come on.
And their fight
No
with
kidding.
trying to get the wallet, and Huey has to go in and get it for them as he bites Scrooge's hand.
Yeah.
Yes, because Scrooge is so cheap that he doesn't want to pay in pesos for an expensive meal. Because go figure.
Yeah, but I also want to say that it is kind of a relatable situation that sometimes when you meet up with friends you haven't seen for a long time, and it is a fear a lot of people have of like, oh my God, what things that they accomplished and I didn't, and it is a legit fear, and I liked how they tackled it, that all of them had it, and it also gives the impression that it brought them closer.
Indeed. It's also kind of sobering, the fact when you realize you have those glory days, your dreams of in college, what you're going to do, and then you realize life doesn't turn out this way. And it's not just for Donald, who has perpetually bad luck. It's a killer base skills. Yeah. You can see where Huey got it from in season 1. But even Jose and Pancho, they're super talented, they can sing, and yet they are also eking out a living while pretending they're fine. And it's almost kind of sobering how they've updated it for modern times. That Donald is basically the kids who grew up watching Ducktales and who are struggling with that sense of feeling unaccomplished.
Yes. And, this is another thing of what I love about this show, that, you could just say that they brought these characters in for fan service, but at the same time, they also put effort into how we can make this work, how we can make this fit, how can it make sense, and and they didn't afraid to take liberties, and thankfully less marijuana when they wrote it. So always good.
Yeah.
I do like though how they also acknowledge that Donald seems to feel like when he first meets Jose and Panchito, that like, oh, I've gone nowhere with my life, but you do see kind of by the end of this episode that no, he has done something with his life, right? He's raised 3 good kids, right? And he's still trying to be a good father or a good parent to them, right? Even though they're not really his kids, right? So he has done something worthwhile, which is, again, it's a really nice touch too.
Indeed. And the fact that Scrooge says it, he tells Donald there's nothing of his life to be ashamed of. He's a proud boat owner and a prouder parent. And Donald doesn't listen at the time, but he gets it later when the 3 Caballeros use their gig to save the kids and Scrooge. Because it turns out, guess what happens in the town they're in? It turns out that none of the people there are real. It's a giant sentient plant that takes notes from Audrey too, that poses as people to lure tourists in and eat them. And the three caballeros decide to fight back by singing. It turns out Donald's voice makes the plant kills the plant. So Huey tells him keep singing.
For some reason, it reminds me an episode of Jimmy Neutron where they beat a giant monster because one of the characters is just that much of a horrible singer. It puts the monster to sleep. So yeah, I kind of took notes from that maybe, but I'm all for it. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the song they're singing is actually from the Three Caballeros movie. So again, good on them for actually going that route and not just using the characters for the sake of it.
Agreed.
So next episode, I think Wolf would like this one. Hercules in Duckburg.
Mm-hmm.
Wolf, you call this guy your boy.
Yeah, Hercules is my boy. He comes here and he's trying to, again, like his dad kicks him out of the house and now he's trying to find rent and he goes to Donald. I enjoy this one. It's fun. Hercules is a regular old himbo and he's just continuing to be a himbo.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a himbo, a very loyal, adorable, and a bit too much of a bone-crushing hugger himbo.
Yep. By the way, I love how Donald just decides that, you know what, I can use this houseboat to charge people money and like kind of make something out of it. And the first person he sees who wants to rent an apartment is the last person he wants to see.
Yes.
I like that irony, and also I enjoy Louis actually using Hercules' situation in order to benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, seeing how he's developing in terms of becoming a businessman of his own.
Yeah, it continues on the earlier plot point for him because he creates in this episode Harp Be Gone, trying to get rid of the harpies that are chasing Hercules to get back at him because his father sent them, right? And you spend the entire time of Hercules trying to be a good, rentee or housemate and all that, but kind of failing at it as well.
Yep.
Because
it's not his fault. He's working for a 10-year-old who doesn't exactly understand labor laws.
Yeah. Yeah, one of those things you need to realize when you sign in for a 10-year-old, he doesn't really know all of those things.
I love how Louis, like, they get rid of all the harpies, they buy all of the harpy merchandise, and it's like, as long as you pay us, everything will be fine. And he's like, pay you? Yeah. You spent all the money on merchandise. Yep. And I love how poor Hercules, he's just immediately, I won't be able to pay the rent. Donald will kick me out. Yeah. And he's so distraught by that too, because he really wanted to impress and be there for Donald. Again, like, he's a himbo. I love him. He is my boy.
Himbo. I do appreciate that Donald doesn't hate Hercules personally. In season 1, it was definitely the fact that Hercules was reminding him of Della, considering the last time they were on the island. And even though he found some closure, Donald, it's nothing personal. Donald, in another world, would like Hercules, but the guy, you don't exactly want this guy as your tenant for a lot of reasons. The guy can lift up the houseboat, and he's a Greek god. Like, that's already...
Yeah, if a Greek god wanted to be my friend, I'd be like, sorry, dude, I have way too much drama with my regular friends. No, thank you.
Yeah. So fortunately, Scrooge finds a solution to the whole situation. Though there is one sad fan theory, because the harpies take away what people love.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned Webby never got what she loved taken away. And some fans theorized it's because she already lost Lena. And so there was nothing else they could take away from her.
Yeah, that's a good point. But
just had to go for the heart. Damn. Yeah. Straight for the heart.
But we'll get to that in a bit. Anything else about episode 5?
No, it's just, again, it's a fun episode. Not too connected, but does have some stuff with Louis' character development throughout the season so far, and kind of getting Donald to come out a bit of a shell towards Storkules as well, and them kind of growing a little close and realizing that, again, Donald doesn't hate Storkules, but he's not the type of person he wants to have around anymore, because Donald's trying to be also a better person, right, or a different person.
Yes.
Well, last Christmas, this is our Christmas episode, at least one of them. And,
Was Christmas in March.
Yeah, basically. And this one I found interesting because Dewey follows Scrooge to the past, and he actually gets to meet young Donald and young Della.
Mm-hmm.
And two things about young Donald that I love. One, he's an emo. For some reason, that's really funny to me. I don't know why. Two, I love the fact that it's Tony Anselmo's voice, but it's obviously sped up to make him sound younger, which is great.
Well, it's also
No, it's not Tony Anselmo. It's Russie Taylor, who
Oh,
played
really?
Huey, Dewey, and Louie in the original reboot.
Really? It sounds
It
like
was actually.
It sounds
Yeah,
like
it was actually.
Oh.
It was actually her last episode. Sadly, she passed away shortly after the episode aired, so this was a
damn.
chance for. Yeah, it's almost a bit of a running gag that the old cast members pass away after they make an appearance. But yeah.
Well, except Alan Young, he died before this show came out, but yeah.
Rest in peace.
Mm-hmm. He was great. But I like that, Dewey actually got to meet Della and, have an adventure with her, because that's obviously something they hinted at, that he connects to her adventurous spirit. He has that adventurous spirit, and he's also the one that basically initiated the search for what exactly happened to her. And so I like that. I really like that journey. While Scrooge is just having a bit of fun with the Ghost of Christmas.
I do. I do, again, I love how, Scrooge McDuck, so it's the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, because Scrooge, right? And the whole Scrooge movie way back when.
Yeah.
And,
Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Yep. I love how, we weren't looking for this Scrooge, we were looking for a different Scrooge, but we stuck around. Again, that's just, it's clever. It's extremely clever, and I love that.
And I think because they know people who watch this probably saw the Disney version of A Christmas Carol, so, it's kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I will say,
indeed,
their definition of a Wendigo is not quite right.
No, but that's what happens when you get Jack McBrayer to play an evil person. It's obviously going to be inaccurate. He plays Wander in Wander Over Yonder, and Felix in Wreck-It Ralph.
God, why did you tell me this? Episode 2 and this thing is not scary to me anymore.
Well, I mean, would you have been scared of a cricket anyway? A little cricket?
No, because I can squash it.
Exactly. Which is actually what happened to the original Jiminy Cricket in the Pinocchio book.
Yeah, when I heard it, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The episode does end on a very, very sad note of Della, when we see Della, wishing the kids Merry Christmas and promising them she's coming back, when we see her fixing the spear of Celine. And that leads us to the next episode.
I also really enjoyed, right, how when you see Dewey come back, right, you have Donald say, "Hey, welcome back," and Dewey's like, "Wait, what?" Because again, Donald remembered him. He understood. Okay, that's who you were. I now know.
Stable
I love
time
that.
loop.
Right.
And remember.
Oh, go ahead.
Also, don't forget, in the first season finale, Della recognized the boys, even though she's never seen them grow up. And this episode explains why. She saw Bluey in the past. And Dewey has a chance to warn his mother and Donald about what happened, but they tell him not to, because it can cause a time paradox.
Yeah.
And so Dewey already feels guilty about this, that he had the chance to save his mother, but he doesn't know if it would have led to worse consequences. And Donald remembers, which means you might wonder if he knows what Dewey was trying to warn him about.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of questions. Also,
Mhm.
you know that sweater that Donald's wearing throughout the whole episode as an adult? Della gave it to him when they were teens in this episode.
Yeah.
It's nice
That's
little subtle
actually
details, right? I
one
have to give
one
them
more
credit.
thing. Yeah, one more thing about subtle details. I think because you can tell that Donald has a nickname for Della, which is Dumbella, because he's making fun of her name. I think Dumbella is her actual name in the comics, but don't quote me on this.
It was in the first cartoon with the triplets. It was signed Dumbella Duck.
Mhm.
I think they pragmatically changed it to Della in the European comics because people would be asking who would name their kid Dumbella if
Probably. Well, honestly, who would name their kid Donald?
Disney,
well
apparently.
Don, you can get a cute name out of Donald, Donnie, Don. We're not going to mention the other Donald.
Yeah,
So it can be refined.
That was that show. But anyway, so
I also last thing
yeah.
I'll say about Last Christmas, I love the fact that they changed up the intro for it as well, and they come back and do this again as well with another later episode that we'll get to. But I just love the fact that they
Yeah.
go through with changing it and kind of change up the theme and all that. It's a lot of fun, just very fun.
Indeed.
Agreed.
But the much more important episode.
Whatever happened to Della Duck, aka Feels?
Feels and also Della, why are you such a dumbass?
AKA somebody really likes the Moon team from the Ducktales game, and I'm not blaming them for it because that team is amazing.
I'm going to say something on that. I love the fact that they used it, right? Because it is a great thing. But
yeah.
I think they used it
too much.
Too much.
Yeah, I get what
I'll tell you what got me. When they had Della's song that she kind of quote unquote sings to the boys, right? When they used her song, when they used the theme for her song that she sings, that one got me. Like, damn, that got me. I will gladly admit that one got me. And it's like, I would have loved it a lot more if they would have used the Moon theme from the DuckTales game a bit more sparingly, and especially really saved it for when she sings that song.
It's one of those, we get it. Can we move this along?
No, I mean, it's not so much that. It's just, I think it would have hit home a lot harder, right? Because, again, it's a genuinely really touching theme to use, especially if you get to the softer parts. But I do love the fact that they used it, and it's kind of like, oh, this is Della's adventure, so let's kind of use that more adventurous theme, right?
Indeed.
On that note, though, Jaya, you said that Della, why are you such a dumbass? Would you like to elaborate?
Well, first, the whole thing of Della taking the Spear of Selene while it was in development, because it turns out it wasn't packed with enough fuel or supplies for a regular flight, let alone a snowstorm.
Yes.
And even though Huey told Scrooge that he could have ordered Della to come back, we could see that even if he tried, Della's stubborn to a fault. So she goes, the only food is Oxy Chew Gum, which is flavored black licorice because it's Gyro's favorite. Though, fun fact, this is the second invention that has saved a duck family member and had not turned evil. So it makes Scrooge's defense of Gyro in season 1 sweet, finding out he indirectly saved Della's life.
Yeah.
But that's
by
the only
the
thing
by, on this though, I must say that I like how this is apparently a duck family tradition to just go, phooey, whenever something doesn't go right for them. I love how it runs in the family. Nice touch.
Indeed. A very nice touch.
And with that note, goddamn, like when we saw that she lost her leg and she has a robotic one now, I was like, whoa, this, like, obviously we don't see her cutting the leg off, but at the same time, like, just the implication that she had to do it in order to move, in order to get away, that actually, I actually went, ooh. But, and just seeing her video messages and just knowing that her only motivation is to get home, the only thing she wants is to see her kids, and the fact that motivated her, and we see how long it takes her. There are some points in the video logs where you actually see she's frustrated by the whole prospect. She wants to go home, but she's just losing hope. And also when she finds out that the spear is actually fuel, it uses gold as fuel, and she talks to Scrooge like, you have plenty of gold, couldn't you give me some in case I'll need it? And yeah, so just seeing her journey trying to fix the spear and trying to get back home, that was really emotional.
Agreed.
Indeed, it was very emotional.
But
And
again,
the tragedy is, we see Scrooge, so some of the astronauts that Scrooge sent into space flying past the moon, and
Yeah.
Della did try to set up some distress signals, but due for reasons, they're never seen. And it hurts that we know this is going to go on for 10 years while she's alone.
Yeah,
And
because
it's just like,
I think even before she stays there for a year, there's a point where she says, I think I'm close. I think I'm actually gonna go home soon. I'm gonna be like, there's a point where she like makes a cake for like their first birthday, and she's like, you're getting something better. You're getting your mother, and that's like, ouch.
Yep. Exactly. It's like, thanks, show. I don't think we needed to hear this. Though also, Paget Brewster plays Della, and she also starred with Danny Pudi in season 6 of Community, where she almost becomes a parental substitute to him. So it's almost this very sweet that they brought that back.
Nice. Again, like we said, voice actor references probably
well,
win.
we have
Yes.
the best voice actor reference. For those of you who play Destiny, you get to see Zavala, aka, if I'm not mistaken, Lance Reddick, in this episode as General Lunaris, the Moonlander, a blue humanoid figure, aka similar to Zavala, a blue humanoid figure who is a commander leading a force. Except this is the one time where he's, instead of, protecting Earth, he's trying to take over Earth, but...
Yes.
That comes later, though. But,
yes. We don't find about it in this episode. He at least agrees to help Della because they have a city made of gold, which she needs to fuel her ship. And he agrees to help her under truce to let her return to Earth and make repairs. No strings attached. Or rather, at least that's what he says to her. He tells his commander Penumbra that Della's useful for now, so they're not going to antagonize her.
Yeah.
I also...
Which, by the way, I like, Della and Pam's relationship. It's obviously, we've seen this before, that they're like the unlikely friends who eventually grow to like each other, but I like it. It's done well.
Also, Destiny fans probably enjoyed this a lot too, because Zavala is living on the moon and is, a moonlander. And in the games, it's very much, you're trying to take back the moon. So, again, like, I have to imagine, like, oh, you play Zavala. He's one of your very popular characters that you play. Here's some wink wink references to that, Have to be. I stand by it. But yeah,
Indeed.
If you're a Destiny fan, Zavala, again, like Lance Reddick, right? Like, I'm always going to call him Zavala because I just know him so much as Zavala because I've played quite a bit of Destiny and Destiny 2. But Lance Reddick does some great work, and he has a great voice. I've talked on this show before about people who I would love to just have read a bedtime story to me. Lance Reddick is one of them. He has an amazing voice. Just lovely voice.
Yeah, he has a good voice. I agree.
Agreed.
Moving on to episode 8. Friendship hates magic. First of all, awesome pun. Thank you, show. I appreciate it. Second of all, welcome back, Lena.
And about time, too.
I'm going to, because from what I understand, this episode was actually aired as episode 14, but I watched it as episode 8. I honestly think it would be better if it was if it was canonically episode 14. Because as episode 8, you kind of go through quite a few episodes before you have anything to do with Lena ever again. I think it's it's after episode 14 where Lena comes back.
Yeah, I think it might have. Maybe Disney made the decision because people were worried about people didn't exactly like Lena at first when thinking that she was an adaptation of Minima Dispel, Magica's actual niece in the comics, and they were worried she was just added in to steal spotlight from the triplets. That changed after the first season finale when people learned actually no, that's not what happened. She's actually a living shadow and a victim of child abuse. And suddenly everyone's opinion. So I think probably Disney was pragmatically trying to please everyone. But as the saying goes, you try to please everyone, you please no one.
Yep.
You don't see Lena again until episode 19, which was kind of a bummer because they bring her back so early, then it's just nothing with her and Webby again. And again, like I really like her and Webby's back and forth and like the connection they have. Like because
Indeed.
it's just Webby's just a
And
fun
there's this
character in this
thing.
one.
Yeah, and
More
I
Webby.
also like that, we see when Webby goes to the library and stuff that, Lena as her shadow just already memorized everything she says. And, when she repeats whatever Webby says, she doesn't say it with like, ugh, I can't hear this anymore. No, she enjoys hearing her say it. And that she's actually looking for stuff about the supernatural because she knows she's doing this for her, like to find a way to maybe bring her back. And
Indeed.
and,
And Webby's actually traumatized by the fact that she thought Lena died. And she reacts quite viscerally when she sees that Violet has an amulet that she associates with Lena. And Violet has to explain that she actually found it after the Shadow War. So, which spurred her interest in magic.
Yeah, and that's actually a thing about Violet that I like this character from the beginning. I don't know, there's something about that voice and personality that's it's kind of nonchalant about the whole thing, which is fun for me. And also I like the idea of Lena, having to build that friendship with Webby, and suddenly I'm not here, and Webby is making another friend. I'm not, and they kind of show that it's not just that she's not trusting of her because of the amulet. She's also kind of legit jealous that Webby has a new bestie now,
And guilty.
Yeah.
Because she knows she befriended Webby initially on Aunt Magica's orders, but then came to realize she actually liked Webby and didn't want to betray her. So part of it is projection as well, worrying someone else will do it to Webby, and she can't let that happen again.
Indeed.
I so enjoy how dense Webby is sometimes, where she just completely ignores the easy to read messages that Lena tries to send her.
Yeah.
Do not trust her, and they're like, oh, it could actually mean this thing in a completely different type of language, and it's like, ugh. Again, a lot of good humor throughout this show. I really just a lot of good humor.
Yeah,
but
and I also like Beakley and Lunchpad bonding over Darkwind Duck because like
Yes.
I looking back when this episode aired, like I was just helping one of my friends get into Spider-Man because of the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer got her hooked. So I was relating to that subplot at the time. So
it's
fun
also
fact.
really fun and enjoyable where you see at first, Mrs. Beakley is kind of this is kind of stupid and kind of dumb, and then by the end of it, she's like, "Oh, I'm in, just 100% in."
And they had actually cosplaying as Darkwing and stuff. That's what that was really cool.
I'm curious, what would you? Because at the end of the show, right? They kind of played off like, oh, they get rid of the tulpas, the manifestation of Lena's jealousy and all that, right? They beat them, they get rid of them, and it looks like for a bit there, like Lena's also going to fade away. That Lena's also gone for good at this point. But they do the kind of the double take, and it's like, oh, the friendship bracelet has enough magic combined with Lena's magic to bring Lena back permanently. So Lena's permanently back. What would you have thought if they had gone the opposite route of Lena is permanently gone? Do you think you would have enjoyed that more, less?
I'm not entirely sure, honestly.
That's fair.
considering the arcs that Lena later gets, I think I would have been very frustrated if that had happened.
Yeah, but then again, we're also talking in hindsight, so
No, that's fair. No, again, that's fair.
No, it's fair, and I agree with it because again, wait for season 3. But yeah, basically, you know what? I would have been sad knowing what we would have missed.
That's fair. I think it could be interesting either way you go, right? Because there's the potential there for a lot with Webby. But agreed. Like I enjoyed Lena a lot, and I would love to see. And I'm curious what they do with her later, considering what you two have told me and kind of what you've hinted at, right? And the fact that she's just a fun character, and I enjoy her and Webby's back and forth a lot.
She is. Also, most importantly, she's free from Magica now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, it's very cathartic considering how Magica treated her, even though basically she's Magica's daughter in every sense of the word.
Yep.
Well, we'll get to Lena later, but for now, let's talk about Treasure of the Found Lamp. Just gonna say, kind of a missed opportunity not using the genie from the Ducktales movie.
But on the other hand, it apologizes for the other stuff in the Ducktales movie, namely the character Dijon, who was a stereotype even for the time period.
Oh yeah.
Here he becomes Dijon.
I watched that movie again like a bit before the show came out, and I'm like, wow, this. You can tell this was before people were worried if they are gonna insult some of the viewers.
Yeah. Product of its time, if you will. Not a good thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, to be fair, DuckTales also had Bombi the Zombie, which was problematic, even as Don Rosa noted when he wrote The Lifetime of Scrooge McDuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in any case, in this episode, Dijon shows up on a motorcycle, looking cool, to Scrooge's doorstep, and he asks Huey politely, "I'm looking for something." So, and Huey's just like, whatever, and he goes to call Uncle Scrooge to deal with this. It turns out Dijon knows that Scrooge has a lamp that is a family heirloom, and he wants it back, but Scrooge seems to have misplaced the lamp. And so, while the family distracts Dijon with different quests, everyone else decides to go and try and find it, where it vanished.
Hello?
I will be honest with you. This is one of the episodes I don't really remember.
Oh no, it's very much a side episode, right? But it's still very fun. But it's the one thing I would say that I feel is a bit of a letdown with this episode is that it feels like they're going for that, hey, I don't know if this was around the same time or not, but you had a lot of people going like, hey, the UK has all these museums and has all these different relics of other countries' heritage and culture, right? They should give them back. And, and this wasn't just the UK, this is other places too. And it's like, yeah, no, we'll not give them back. We're taking care of them for you. And it's like, well, no, that's kind of their culture, their heritage. You should be willing to give that back so they can display it to their people and their families and things of that nature instead of having to go to an entirely different country, right? I feel they kind of missed a trick with this one where they could have, said, because they do eventually regain the lamp, right? And Jen reveals that, the lamp's very, and like, Scrooge himself says it throughout the entire episode that there's nothing to the lamp. It's not even important whatsoever. But Jen kind of talks about the lamp like it is super important, like it is, like there is something major to it. And everyone thinks, oh, there's a genie in it that can grant wishes or something of that nature. But no, it's just the lamp is important to him as it's a part of his family because the genie that was in the lamp so long ago married his great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, right?
Yes.
And so I feel like they missed a bit of a trick where, because at the end of it, Scrooge sees, oh, there's value in telling stories, so I'm going to open a museum up in Duckburg. I think it would have been more interesting, right, for him to not only open a museum in Duckburg, but also give back some of those old artifacts that, maybe aren't super dangerous, right, to museums so they can display them and have them on display in the places where he found those artifacts, kind of carry that lesson forward as well. 'Cause we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one kind of... That's probably the one minus that I would level at this episode, right? Otherwise, very good episode, very fun, very good moral at the end of it, right? That, you shouldn't just hoard these things for yourself. You should give them to other people to see for free, because there is a lot of culture and heritage in those items, and they are important to people, and they're worth seeing and worth knowing those stories behind.
Indeed.
I would totally visit that museum.
Agreed.
At least it means that if someone does want the relics back, at least they'll be on display so Scrooge can donate them rather
This
than
is
having
true.
to go through all of this rigmarole again. So I appreciate Jean isn't too angry when he finds out Scrooge misplaced the lamp. He actually finds it amusing that everyone assumes that it has a genie in it. He actually laughs at Ma Beagle.
Poor Mob Beagle. Again, I do love. Again, he's a fun character. He's a character that I would love to see. That I would definitely not mind seeing again, because he's just absolutely a badass too. Just being an amazing person.
So moving on to the Outlaw Scrooge McDuck. I just want to point out that Scrooge and Gyro were basically at the time of the Old West, where they meet Fenton's ancestor, who kind of has a gizmo duck like equipment at some point, and it's like, couldn't Scrooge figure it out from that memory that Fenton is Gizmo Duck? Like, at some point he could have put two and two together. I guess I'm the only one who thought about it. Never mind.
But also, it also lampshades that Scrooge is ridiculously old.
Yeah, well,
because
again,
and he
and
justifies
Goldie, too.
it, but still.
Mhm.
He's
Because-
like 150 in this continuity, and so he's had a lot more experience than most people do in their lifetimes.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was a good flashback episode, and also a nice Western episode. It was a nice combination of both, and it's nice to see Goldie again, and see how their methods essentially cross paths. That we see Scrooge is the hardworking person that he is, because we see him actually dig an entire tunnel in order to get to the gold, and then we see Goldie just finding it without much of an effort, and both of them having to work together, and eventually also kind of keep the competition going. All good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It's also right. The entire episode is supposed to be like a moral for Louis, right? Like that, because at the beginning of the episode,
Who learns
right,
the completely wrong lesson.
Yeah.
And eventually wants to partner up with Goldie instead of hearing his uncle. But hey, kid is impressionable, I guess.
Yeah, again, it's true. Right? He's still learning. He's still figuring it all out, which is good. I'm glad they show that. But it's enjoyable, right? That it's supposed to be an entire moral for him, and he takes the exact wrong idea from it because he enjoys his schemes, right? Scrooge doesn't really enjoy scheming all that much. He enjoys working hard for everything, and he enjoys like the journey to get to where he's gotten to. But Goldie and John D. Rocker Duck, who you meet in this episode as well, right? More enjoy the quick, easy, get rich quick scheme, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
he calls up Goldie.
Yeah.
Which is like, kid, you just heard about Goldie swindling your uncle. Like,
and also he kind of knows Goldie in person. It's like,
but again, I
you
love
have too many red flags. Just saying.
Again, I do love the fact though that Louis is young still. He is impressionable. He is still learning. He is still like,
no, I get it.
His thought, his thought is though like, oh, Goldie might try and trick me, but I'm good enough. I can get one up on her too. And you learn later that that's not the case. That he's not that good. That he does still have a lot to learn.
Yes.
Yeah. It is interesting. They maintain keeping out the whole thing that Scrooge in the comics kidnapped Goldie and made her work for him for a month. I do appreciate they cut that out because it would not have worked.
No.
Yes.
And instead, and pretty obvious, Scrooge would have settled down with her happily if she had been willing to. But she's just like, I'll take the money and run every time.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, the 87-cent solution. Brilliant. That's all I have to say. It's brilliant. It's stupid, but it's brilliant at the same time.
Yeah, this was good. This was extremely funny, extremely well done. Like, I can't not praise. Like, this was a good episode.
I love the idea that Glumgold just thought that if he would steal just 87 cents from Scrooge, he would die. Like, obviously, they say the reason he died is because of the gold fever, which is a reference to one of the older episodes of the original Ducktales cartoon. I'm not sure if it was in the comics, but just that he thought I would steal a few cents from him, he'll die because of that fever, and then I would become the richest duck in the world.
Well, it's not even that he would die. It's just he figured he would go crazy enough that Glomgold would win the bet, and he kind of was winning the bet. Scrooge did go crazy enough.
Yeah, but maybe the idea was to make Scrooge go crazy. But as soon as they say that Scrooge died, quote unquote, like he's just so happy that he reveals himself, and it's like there's something beautifully psychotic about that.
I love also how it was Scrooge's plan to get Glomgold to reveal himself, right? Because he knew that, they knew that if they tried to play it off as like, oh, no one's ever going to know what did or didn't happen anymore, because Glomgold can't help himself. He has to reveal that it was his plan, that he was the one who outsmarted Scrooge for once. Unfortunately for him, he didn't outsmart Scrooge.
Yeah. Well, but not a lot to say about this one. Just a fun episode.
Poor Donald, though.
Yeah.
No one told Donald that Scrooge actually didn't die. He is still alive.
Yeah. That's great. That was great. That nobody bothered to fill him in, which is like, why wouldn't you do it? Like, wasn't Della enough? And speaking of Della, the Golden Spear, aka more ouch.
Indeed.
So this episode is going both ways. Like there's the moon plot and the earth plot. I'll just sum up the earth plot with one word: mood.
Mood.
Yeah, the earth plot is just Donald trying to rest because stress is getting to him.
Yes. He's hitting a breaking point.
Yeah, and poor guy, like, come on, I feel sorry for him. Like, let the guy rest. He doesn't have to be dragged into all of these adventures and stuff. Just let him rest.
But I do love.
Okay. They do give him they do give him like a chance to go on a cruise and stuff, but it's like he doesn't even need that. Just let him be. Let him sleep for 24 hours one day or something. Just leave him alone.
Yeah.
But in the meanwhile, on the moon, Della is actually getting very close to fix the Spear of Selene. And while she's there, she's telling all the Moonlanders about Earth, and eventually she promised them to bring them along with her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which eventually turns out that Penumbra tells her, you know what? No, you go back. You go now, and she's trying to tell her that she would leave the Moonlanders alone so that she could show that Della was a fake the entire time. So Della eventually leaves, and and then the twist that I still don't really like, that Lunar suddenly fakes that Della hurt him and that she declared war on the moon, and it's like, Where did this come from?
I like
Well,
this.
he did say she would be useful, so he was obviously planning something.
Yeah, I know that, but at the same time, there's a difference between she might be useful to us to I'm going to use her to get all of my followers to call out the entire Earth
Well,
for
you know,
to war.
it's worth mentioning, right? Like, I think it's at the end of this episode, close to, and then you learn more as time goes on in a few later
That's
episodes
true.
that Lunaris tells Penumbra, right, that his father was the one who decided to kind of hide the city on the moon from everybody because his father was so scared of Earth and what it could or couldn't do, right? All because he saw a couple of rockets leaving from Earth one time. And, the thought of what Earth may or may not do just scared him so much.
But
Yeah.
I just on this part to realize this is kind of like Wakanda in Black Panther, just a bit.
A little bit. But I also love, right, that because his father was so scared, Lunaris, that fear did rub off onto Lunaris in a way, but it rubbed off in a very different way where Lunaris set in his mind that I'm never going to be afraid of them. I can't, I refuse to turn out like my father did and live my life in fear. So instead, I'm going to turn that fear and he turns that fear into a hatred, essentially. I kind of love that.
Yeah, but this is something we'll
It
get to later. But in this episode specifically, it kind of felt to me like we jumped from 0 to 100.
Yeah,
at
I
a
do get where you're coming
millisecond.
from. Like, yeah, it definitely comes a bit out of nowhere. Like, maybe they could have kind of got that across in some subtle way a little bit ahead, a little bit before now. But yes, I do get it. I think they kind of bring it back later with later episodes where you learn more about Lunaris and kind of his hatred for Earth. But yeah, when you first see it here, it does feel a bit out of nowhere, and it's not as well foretold, choreographed, or gotten a foreshadowed. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But then,
Really, the thing that made me scream in frustration is just Donald's bad luck. And it obviously pays off well later.
yeah, that scene where he sees the rocket and he actually runs for it and looks for Della, and then accidentally launches himself while Della is on Earth. It's like, why do you do this to me?
Poor Donald.
Why would
Screaming
you
in
why do you do this
frustration.
to me?
Because I'm
Poor
like,
Donald.
he just wanted to see his sister again after 10 years and thinking she was dead.
Either wanted to see his sister
It's
again,
like-
or he just wanted to have a break. Poor Donald.
He wanted to have a break, but he couldn't resist it when he saw the ship because he knew what it was from Della's blueprints.
Yeah. Like,
And
as
it's
soon
like-
as he sees it, the first thing he says is, "It can't be." Like, he knows what this is. There's nothing else.
Yeah. And obviously, it actually ended up working. It's a good thing he went, we find out later, but at the time when you're watching it, you're like, rawr.
Yeah. That was frustrating the first time through. But it does lead us to the next episode, which is Nothing Can Stop Della Duck. Also, mole feels. Thank you, show. Didn't have enough of those.
Yeah.
But I love how when Della arrives at Scrooge's mansion, Scrooge just tells the kids about that quill that can show them the road to all of the world's greatest treasures. And as soon as he opens the door, we see Della practicing what she's going to say, which is obviously turns out terrible. But I also love that when he sees her and that she's alive, the first thing he does is let the quill fall and break. And it's like, the treasures don't matter. Della's back. Like,
Yes. A very appropriate reaction, considering Scrooge blamed himself for what happened to her.
Yeah. And also, just the reunion that, it's the right amount of, oh shit, you're okay. And also them being mad at each other. That's like, I searched the moon. Well, you didn't search hard enough. And then they realize that it still missed each other so much that it doesn't matter. All that matters is that she's back.
Yes. I mean, Mcduck family rage is there. It runs in the family. But so do those strong bonds that are there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like, Huey, Dewey, and Louie reacting to Della suddenly showing up. That, Dewey is the first one to accept it, and also the fact that they were supposed to have different names entirely than Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And Huey at first doesn't know what to make of it until they both quote the Junior Wucha guidebook, and Louis is the one that's taken it the hardest. He's the one that doesn't know how to react to it, and that's something he tries
I
to go through
I
the
love
entire
that
show.
though. They actually acknowledge, like, Louis even says, I lived 10 years or so without a mom. I'm not used to having one now.
Yeah, that line was.
Like again, it hits hard, but
Yeah.
if you've lived without a parent for quite some time, you get that feeling immediately, right? Like, I've done this on my own for so long now, I don't really need one now. Again,
Yep.
that hits home, but you know that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
So I wholeheartedly respect them for including that.
Yeah, but yeah, this was another great episode, and then we also see Donald on the moon, basically going through what Della went through, and needed to
Poor
live
Donald.
off the oxychew, which thank God there was more of, by the way. Like, it's a good thing that Della didn't just eliminate the entire supply in the 10 years she was there.
Apparently,
But
one piece of gum lasts for 10 years. Apparently, some good gum. Terrible flavor,
yeah.
but good gum.
And then of course, even the Moonlanders don't understand Donald the poor thing. But but by the way, something that does kind of annoy me is that we see Donald being imprisoned over there, and it's like, God damn it, nothing. We are not going to see anything of this until a few episodes later. Like, I'm sad.
Moving on.
So, moving on to Riddles of the Doomsday Vault. This is great for two reasons. One, we get to see Della and Dewey bonding, and two, we get to see Scrooge and Glumgold walking together. What else do you need?
Fair. Yeah, this is, another, again, it's a bit of a side episode, but there's a lot of fun character moments. And that's what I would say a lot about DuckTales, the reboot. There's not everything is super story driven. It's more character driven, which is actually very interesting and very fun. Like, it's not so much story arcs that carry the season through itself, it's character arcs that carry the season through itself. Like Louis, wanting to start his own business and become, rich like Scrooge through his own work in his own way, right? You have that character development going on throughout the season. You have, once Della gets here, you have her character arc trying to be a good mom and parent to the boys, right? And her development through that going on throughout the season. You have, again, you have like the boys trying to bond with Della, right? And in their own way, and, trying to connect with her again in their own separate ways, right? Going on throughout the season. It's enjoyable. It's different, but it's enjoyable, right? To see more character arcs and character driven stories than it is just a full story driven story.
Agreed. Jaya, your thoughts?
She is currently muted,
Oh, okay.
so she is
So,
away, I guess, at the moment.
yeah, so we'll get back to that. But yeah, basically, like you said, this is a good arc episode for two bunch of characters that we really like. So this works. And I don't have much to say except for the fact that I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, very fun.
So moving on to the dangerous chemistry of Gandra D.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Again, another fun episode. This one's more focused on Fenton and his character, right, and kind of showing him off, right, and it's fun. Like, it's fun. And I enjoy Fenton. He's a very, he's a precious little being.
He is, but also sometimes you just want to, like, come on, Fenton, just show a little common sense.
Yeah,
Don't
you
bring
wanna
in a
shake him.
scientist to have your date at your workplace where
You
you
just-
caused security breach before. And sure
Yeah.
enough, it turns out Gondra has an ulterior motive.
Oops.
Like, yes, big oops. I think Jamila Jamil plays Gondra D. Let me double check on that. Because Gondra D, voice actor, who's also in, because Miriam Flynn plays Gondra D. So, but I know Jamila Jamil shows up later.
Yeah.
Okay, Jamila plays her in the reboot. Okay, she
Oh.
plays her in the reboot, and Darkwing's computer later.
Yeah, this is
When she plays an American.
But until you just said it, I didn't recognize that it's supposed to be her. So good on her for actually changing the voice so much for Gandra.
She is quite talented.
But yeah, this is one of those when this episode started, I knew what kind of plot they're trying to do, and usually I'm okay with this kind of plots because it gets a lot of comedy options. But as soon as it's like you're bringing your date to the place you walk at, eyebrows raised, many eyebrows raised, and sure enough,
Yeah.
I mean,
she's spying for Mark Beeks.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest problem with this episode is just more Mark Beeks. Yeah.
Yeah,
and Mark Beeks is
we actually forgot
too
about
good
him.
at being Mark Beeks.
Yeah, we actually forgot about him for half a season. It's like, why did we need him now? Like, just why?
Mark, I won't deny.
We got to see him Hulk out.
Which was interesting, kind of. I think what we see...
Walking out is important. Walking out is important. The thing is, though...
There's a few later... I think there's, like, 2 later episodes where we see Mark Beeks, and he has less prominent roles, but more side roles, but he's still there. I enjoy him in those episodes more than I do this one, which is more of a focus on him. It's just whenever they put kind of the spotlight on Mark Beeks, it's instantly like, this guy is way too good at being the character he is, and I kind of just don't enjoy him for it. I'll admit. I don't know if that's a compliment or a bad thing. I'm not sure. I don't necessarily mean it as a compliment, but he is good enough at playing the character that I just really don't like him.
Well, what can you do?
Yep, what can you do? And also, the lesson is, if someone wants to take a date at your workplace, basically don't suggest coffee instead. So I appreciate that Fenton calls out Gondra for being a hypocrite, because she was deriding him for working for a corporate trillionaire. And he finds out she was working for Mark Beeks, and he was like, "Are you absolutely BSing me right now?" But without that, and gets mad at her.
Agreed. I love the fact that he called her out too. Yeah.
Yeah, because because it shows that she doesn't necessarily have any power over him. They're like on equal footing in terms of who messed up here.
And I'm going to be looking forward to that.
Yeah, but episode 16, he's the terror that flaps in the night. He's the internet connection that dies on you when you're trying to record a podcast. He's Darkwind Duck. And yeah, this is my favorite episode in the entire show, bar none.
It's definitely one of the best ones. There's only one season 3 episode that might blow it out of the water, but we're not at season 3 yet. But it's definitely my favorite of season 2. I do like
just before this, Wolf, what are your thoughts? Just to know.
It's fun. It's a really good episode. Like I love everything in it. I don't know if it's my favorite episode of season 2, but I definitely really enjoyed this one. It's just a lot of fun, and I think we get to see a lot of different stuff come together in a really fun way.
So, Jaya, you wanted to start?
Yes. There's a similar Batman episode from the 90s called Beware the Grey Ghost, where an Adam West character finds out that he inspired Batman. And after having become a washed out actor due to the fact that people only see him as the Grey Ghost, but he finds out he can be a hero in real life, and he gets his career rebuilt. And this goes down the opposite direction, which is pretty ironic. Jim Starling, at a signing, finds out from Dewey, of course, that there's going to be a Darkwing movie coming out, and no one told him about it. Which first, boo, not cool. Because give the guy a cameo at least. And so they decide to go to the studio where they find out Scrooge owns it.
Yeah.
And talking
by
with
the way,
a swan.
Great line. You own a movie studio that can make a child's dream come true. Why didn't you tell me in order to avoid this exact conversation?
And Dewey admits he has a point.
And by the way, I love the director character just because he's voiced by Edgar Wright. Director of Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. If you haven't seen them, awesome movies, check them out. And the thing that's funny about this is that when you know Edgar Wright's movies, he is the furthest away you can be from this kind of director. Like, he's not this, I'm an artist who wants to make you think about what you're seeing and, challenge your mind. No, he's a, fuck it, let's have fun. Let's just go out and do something unique with the medium. And basically, he's Dewey, actually. When Dewey tells the guy, I ate a chainsaw jugglers, you're welcome. This is the kind of director Edgar Wright usually is. So I like that ironic casting. And also the fact that he's having production issues and, kind of creative differences with Scrooge McDuck, who is a Disney character, could kind of connect to how he had problems with Disney and Marvel regarding the original Ant-Man movie, which he was set to direct. So, meta humor, I suppose.
In case this Darkwing reboot doesn't have the slapstick comedy with Jim Starling, or AKA 90s Ducktales, and Launchpad gets upset because he finds out Darkwing's a grim and gritty hero that's an anti-hero and sets the city on fire on purpose rather than by accident, as Launchpad points out.
By the way, can we talk about this trailer, like how they're making fun of all the trailers to reboots that like supposedly have everything there but still miss the point? And the fact of the matter is that they made that joke too good because actual trailers are like this, and I'm not sure if we are supposed to be laughing or crying over that fact.
Well, at least, and the irony is that Alistair Borthwick is meant to be a parody of Christopher Nolan, but the Christopher Nolan movies understood the spirit of Batman as much as Borthwick didn't understand the spirit of Darkwing. Yeah. But Zack Snyder's fair game, though. I'm not going to forgive Zack Snyder for giving us Batfleck, because seriously, man. In the meantime, Jim Starling then gets kicked out of the studio for manhandling Borthwick when he finds out someone else was hired to play Darkwing. And he convinces Launchpad that it would be the right thing to break into the movie trailer, capture the guy playing Darkwing in the movie, and take his place for this ending, as Scrooge, under protest, puts Dewey in charge of directing a new ending because Borthwick's way over budget. It's like, go figure. And funnily enough, the original Animaniacs had a similar episode that was a parody of Heart of Darkness, where the Warners were sent to make a director end a movie because it was way over budget.
Yeah. So one thing we do need to mention about Jim Starling, though, is that he's voiced by Jim Cummings, the original Darkwing.
Yep.
So, and it's great, and like that's the thing that what is the thing that made Darkwing stand out in the original show? His ego, and that ego carries on to this actor because it's like as soon as he hears that there's a movie, he just assumes he's going to be cast in the role, and that's kind of an egotistical thing to assume that they're just gonna cast you because you're the original, not thinking that they're even no matter how many hints the director tells them is like, we're almost finished. You're filming my scenes last. And it's like, no. And it's like, oh, so you're gonna CG me or something. It's like, dude, get the hint. You're not playing the character.
Worst
Also,
one's
I love the
fault,
fact that he
though.
tells when they're sneaking into the studio, he tells Launchpad, I can disappear into any role, and then like he dresses as a carrier, and he's doing the exact same Darkwind shtick of I am the carrier that delivers the package. It's like, come
Yep.
on.
Yes.
I love that.
The lesson is give people who were originally in a show cameos. Because Jim might have been satisfied if he had just been acknowledged. You can't blame the guy at first for being upset that he wasn't even considered.
I do
But then...
Oh, go ahead.
But then things go off the rails when we actually meet the actor, who points out that Launchpad trying to lock him in his own trailer isn't very heroic.
Yeah. Before we get to that, though, Wolf, what did you want to say?
Oh no, I was going to say, right, Jaya kind of nailed on the head. I love that, though. You kind of learn a bit about the actual actor who's playing, Darkwind Duck, and how he is just a huge fan, and you kind of meet him at the beginning of the episode where he was a huge fan of, Darkwing Ducks and Jim Starlings, and he was going to say, like, hey, what do you have, can you give any advice to the new guy who's stepping into your shoes, And I do love, how we get to the end of this episode and you kind of see that it's old Darkwing Duck, Jim Starling, versus this, new guy who's playing Darkwing Duck. And they actually do end up with, like, a really cool ending to a, quote-unquote movie like this. And it's completely ruined by Dewey green screening himself in dancing. And then they cancel the film.
By the way, I guess we could say that the actor playing Darkwind in that movie, his name is Drake Mallard, which was Darkwing in the original show. So nice nod there, considering in the episode ends with him actually becoming the character in real life.
Yeah.
But the reason I really like this episode and why I think it's the best, because when you really think about it, this show is a reboot. This show is a reboot of the original Ducktales, and kind of like any other reboot, I'm sure there were people who were skeptical of this show. There were people who were like, this is not the Ducktales I grew up with. But you need to understand that the people making this, who made this show, this new one, were probably fans of the original Ducktales as well. And they were doing their best to make sure they give to a new generation what the original DuckTales gave to them. And when Drake tells Launchpad about how the original Darkwind Duck inspired him and changed his life, and then he tells them, I know this movie is not perfect, but I want to make this better, and I want to be to another kid what the original meant for me. This was so sincere and so heartwarming and they could have just made it the easy way out and just say, you see, the reboots don't always suck so hard. Like, kind of Teen Titans Go It, in a sense, to, like, make fun of the idea that people don't give reboots a chance. But at the same, they took a very adult approach with it, and I really respect them for that.
Agreed.
And not just an indulgence, but also acknowledging the reason why reboots suck. Like we mentioned Teen Titans Go last time and Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, that's just not getting the idea of the original, basically.
And also mocking the fans that protest about it.
Indeed.
And that's the other thing I appreciate, that this does seem to be leaning on the fourth wall. This is Frank Aragonis acknowledging, yes, this reboot could have gone badly, and we understand all of your concerns, so we're going to use Darkwing as a vessel to talk about it.
But it also respects the original show. This was a love letter to people who grew up with the show and loved it. And as someone who got on the Darkwind Duck train way after it aired, I still felt it. Like, this was very respectful for the show, and especially when Drake eventually does suit up and does the entire intro of, like, I'm the terror that flaps in the night and stuff. This is a really cool reveal. This is like up there. You got it. You got what made that show work.
Exactly. And it was an interesting thing also about Jim Starling, because when people asked if Gosling was going to appear in the show, this was back in season 1, Frank said, Darkwing is no Darkwing without Gosling. And so it was taken to mean, okay, Gosling's going to show up and be with Jim Starling, and it's going to be the hero. Nope.
Nope, not at all. And we'll get to it later. But
here,
if I
Jim
have to
snaps.
If I have to
Jim
nitpick,
snaps.
though, this is the thing. If I need to nitpick, the end reveal where Jim becomes Mcduck, that is a cool ass tease. That is such a cool idea and such smart idea, because it's also Jim Cummings doing the voice of Mcduck in the original show. But this is something I will kind of say about season 3 to those who haven't seen it. This doesn't come back. Ever.
Nope, it does not.
I mean, I was hoping it would. Darn.
Well, we are getting a Darkwing show, though.
This
even
is
if
true.
it's with a different crew.
That's the thing. That's the thing. They say there is a new Darkwind Duck show in the works for Disney Plus, but at the time of this recording, anyway, no one confirmed if it's related to this show. If it's like in the same universe or not.
It better be.
I hope it is.
They just abruptly canceled Ducktales, and it's like, are you absolutely kidding me, man?
Let's say it like this. Consider an episode that's coming in the next season. There is a very strong possibility that it is. I would just love more clarity on the fact.
Mm-hmm. That's understandable.
Maybe we'll get a cast theme sing-along again. I think I would be up for that.
Yeah, who knows? Oh, but man, just imagine. That would be amazing.
Could you imagine Stephanie Beatrice singing again? Yeah. And some...
I don't remember who's the guy that does the new Darkwing. But,
Chris Dianopoulos, who's also Storkules, Wolf's man.
Yes.
So the himbo can sing for Darkwing.
So just him doing, and Beck Bennett would be in both because Launchpad. So, and they do sing the song. They do sing the song in this show too. So yay.
Yep.
But yeah, if the Darkwing Duck show doesn't pull from this as kind of its start, they'd be missing out, because this is a really good start for for a new Darkwing Duck and for for Mcduck too. Like it's just way too good of a start for some of the characters.
Agreed. And speaking of,
you'll see more of it. You'll see more of it in the next season. Wolf, trust us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The other thing that the episode talks about is when your heroes break their pedestals, and it's like this was like, dang it. They apparently were with us in 2017 when all the pedestals started falling. And it talks about, and even Jim Cummings went through a bit of this actually when the episode came out. They were not predicting this. This was not supposed to happen. But Jim Cummings was hit by an allegation of domestic and animal abuse by his ex-wife. And the judge threw out the charges, though he chastised him and his ex for being more concerned with dragging each other through the mud than worrying about their kids. I don't know if it's true, but talk about either really good or really bad timing, as this Jim Starling goes off the deep end when Drake Mallard says, why don't we star in the movie together?
I actually had this idea of I hope Jim Cummings and the new guy weren't actually in the same booth. Just to be safe.
Good. Yeah. Well, good, because basically Drake says, let's star in the movie together and inspire a new generation. And when it seems that Jim Starling is going to respond, he starts banging the door against Drake repeatedly until he's knocked out and puts him in a closet. And then he pulls a gun on Borswan when he wants to cut the footage.
Yeah.
And
also,
But Launchpad...
One last thing I will say about this episode, though. For someone who claims that he's smarter than the smarties, Scrooge really can't point out the bad guy if he doesn't have a mustache.
I mean, to be fair, or if they have green skin, Magica anyone?
Yeah.
But to be fair, it's only in a movie. Scrooge doesn't do entertainment the way that Dewey does.
That's true.
Though I like that Launchpad's introspective about what happens when your hero disappoints you, which is a question I've been wondering myself, with quite a few pedestals breaking. He says even if someone's disappointed you, you can still take the lessons they taught you and inspired you, and you can pay homage to what they used to be, and that you can emulate their ideals. And that was for Launchpad. That was coming off as very wise, and provided an answer to something I was debating with quite a few people who broke their pedestals.
So, as much as this episode is great, we do need to move on, if you don't mind. So...
Well, it's okay. Nothing else really measures up to this in season 2. So
yeah. So again, this was my favorite episode of the entire show. So yeah. Anyway, happy birthday, Doofus Drake.
This
is funny.
Yeah, this is a fun episode. It kind of ends off Louis' arc of trying to, use it doesn't quite end it off, but it ends off, Louis having Goldie teach him and his, whole trying to use get rich quick schemes instead of working hard, right? And you kind of see a bit more of Goldie, who's just really fun and really enjoyable. And
they're
how
trying to
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, also trying to outscam a scammer.
Yeah.
That was like, Louis, you're the real doofus around here, more so than Doofus Drake.
Mm-hmm. But I do love how
I do want to just to quickly point out the side plot where Della actually teaches Huey how to get out of a comfort zone in a video game. I think this was again, she had an episode to bond with Dewey, so I like that she also had this opportunity with Huey, and it's like, Huey is like relying on the facts and counting on what he knows for sure and stuff. And it's nice to see his mother tell him, you can also try new things, you can also experiment with stuff, and it can lead to positive results. And I like that. This was and my mother helped me with this thing, and not necessarily to video games, mind you, but just I related to this.
I love how Huey's comfort zone is literally shown as a physical bubble. Clap, clap. That was clever.
Yep, indeed.
Also, no, Mom, I would play Sonic Generations before Uncharted 3. Stop telling me what to do. I'm playing... This is a reference no one will get, but I don't care.
But yeah, this episode you have Huey and Della bonding, which is very sweet, very lovely, very enjoyable. And then you have Louis kind of bonding with Goldie a bit, and them kind of getting to know one another a bit, and trying to, outscam the scammer, and them trying to outscam one another while trying to outscam Gomgold and Beaks, right? And this is one of those episodes where I think Beaks kind of shines a little bit, where you kind of get some good humor from him.
Because he's not the main character.
Yeah.
Not the main villain, necessarily.
Yeah. He's not really the focus.
Yes.
And I also
like...
Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's also like Louis found out that Scrooge was right.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't trust Gold. She's alluring, and obviously Scrooge still loves her, but he sure as heck doesn't trust her.
But I also love, you actually get to see that, Louis also kind of grew to like Goldie too, and Goldie did grow to like Louis at the end, because she does, risk her life to save him.
Yeah, but she doesn't leave any of the treasure for him.
No, she still takes that and leaves, but
she still
Goldie's
takes
going to
the
Goldie.
treasure, but still, the fact she cares enough to save him shows something.
And then she does kind of keep a picture of him, just as she's kept a picture of Scrooge all these years. Mm-hmm. She can't settle down. She can't, make that kind of commitment, but she does still care. Like, again, it's all very sweet little stuff here and there. Mm-hmm. Nothing that's hugely standout, I would say, but just general, very good, strong episode.
Yes. So moving on to one of my favorites this season, Whatever Happened to Donald Duck? Obviously a sequel to an episode we already had, but
I would say this is probably my more favorite episode, especially what we learn about Donald in this episode.
Yeah, like what we learn about Donald, again, like Donald was always my favorite of like the core Disney cast, from Mickey, Goofy and stuff. Donald was always my favorite, and to just see an explanation for his anger, see that there's a reason behind the madness, see, basically, for lack of a term, making him more human works so well. Like, I was surprised that they took such a deep approach for a character that's been around for so long. Like, this is great.
I love how, right, they talk about, like, Donald's going to an anger management guy. He's trying to learn how to manage his anger. Like, he really couldn't learn how to manage his anger. He was really bad at it. And so him and his, therapist, more or less, kind of decided, let's instead channel that anger then. And so they started, teaching. And so, Donald started learning ways to channel his anger into protecting his family. And I love how they kind of juxtapose this explanation by Jones, right, over top of Donald fighting Lunaris and getting angry because Lunaris threatened his family, right? I love that.
By the way,
so good.
I also love that, Donald actually gets a few hits on Lunaris. Like, he's not just getting beat up. He actually gets a few hits on them, and it's implied that Lunaris knows how to fight and stuff. So the fact that Donald actually puts up a fight, that's great.
But again, they also show, right, that Donald's anger can't get him through everything, right? Like, his anger is not just enough. He does need more than that. I do love how they show that. Like, yeah, it's great that Donald's learned how to channel all of that anger that he has into something more positive, but he does need more than that, right?
Yes.
That's not enough all the time.
But he does manage to send, to use the transmitter that Penumbra gave him, but it's the message also isn't clear when Scrooge gets it. It's like, he's having a good time.
Yep. And then you see Donald, like, take the extremely risky approach of trying to get back to Earth, where, you saw before that whoever
With
takes
the
this
2001 Space Odyssey reference of all things.
Yep.
Yep.
But you see, like, this approach at trying to get back to Earth very well could kill him, but he still takes it anyways because protecting his family.
Right.
Yeah, and I also love that this entire thing with the therapist started when Dewey and Webby tried to figure out something else, tried to figure out Donald's anger management. And then Dewey's conclusion that everything Donald has been doing was to help them, to protect them, to raise them. It actually gets to him that, he died. And again, the family connections, they are so real in this animated show about ducks.
Agreed. Like, again, I love the fact that they show, like, this is a family. It's a unique family. It's not what people would consider a normal definition of a family, but it's their family, and it works for them. I love that. I love how that they continue to show that, this is their family. This is who they are.
By the way,
Agreed.
I would just like to point out that this show gets family more than the movie franchise about family does, Fast and Furious. There you go.
Well, I can't comment on that since I've never seen Fast and Furious.
You're not missing a goddamn thing.
What?
Unless,
Wrong.
No, you're missing very, very weird and over-the-top action, which can be fun.
It's anime. It's anime. It's real-life anime. It's real-life car anime. It is. I defy you to disagree with me. Fast and the Furious.
No, I agree. That's why I'm
live-action anime.
I just never thought of it like that. Okay, so, but because everything they do in these movies, it's like because of family and like because of the family and stuff, and then you see this cartoon about ducks, and it's like it gets family more than those movies.
Fast and the Furious it's about family as they drive a really expensive, really nice, fast car, basically skyscraper hopping. That's Fast and the Furious. It's about family.
Yeah,
it's anime.
Let's save it for another podcast. But next up is A Nightmare on Kilometer Hill.
Finally, we get Lena back.
Yeah.
11 episodes later, like, God, I wish we got more of Lena. But this is a good episode to bring her back on. And once again, we kind of see that, Magica has no more, like, Magica's desperately trying to get control back over Lena to try and somehow get her powers back. But Lena finally realizes that, no, Magica doesn't have any powers and she doesn't have any more control over her, that she is free. Right? Just a very great episode for Lena. Really enjoyable.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on it, aside from the fact that we do get that a hint that Magica is still around and that she will come back one day.
Yeah. No, I also love, right, too, that, you see Webby tell, like, Lena, like, hey, you're a part of the family. Like, everyone like, even the boys tell it, like, hey, you're a part of the family too now. If you need something, we're here for you. Right? It's just
Indeed.
very fun.
Again, not a
Very
whole lot
sweet,
to
very
say
fun.
about
Yeah.
this one.
Again, like, it does what it set out to do, right? Like, it shows that Lena's having issues. She's trying to hide it, and she's trying to, do more with her. She's trying to do more and show that she is a part of the family and trying to, like, really prove herself to everybody. And she's trying to hide the issues that she's currently having and the self-doubt and all of that. And at the very end, she finds out that, hey, you don't need to do that. We're here for you no matter what. Very sweet.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, the Golden Armory of Cornelius
Coot.
Coot. Sorry.
Again, another fun episode. Kind of speeding through these a bit, but, again, very fun, very shows a bit of, the Beagle Boys, getting them back a bit, and shows, Webby trying to compare herself to Della and be as good as, if not better than Della, and Della kind of showing that, hey, she can be a mom to Webby too, she can be there for Webby as well. Very sweet.
Yeah.
And you get Della and Launchpad having their back and forth and them kind of learning from each other a bit,
Both planes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And anything you want
I didn't
to
really
add,
think
Jaya,
I
on this
needed Della and Launchpad, having character interaction together, but it was fun that they had it.
one? It was fun.
Agreed.
So, anything else about this one, or shall we move on?
Not really. This is basically like a fun episode, but it's not one that really punches you in the feels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or
I
makes you
think
scream with
they
frustration.
knew this. I think they knew this so that they give us a few breather episodes because after learning about Donald, in order to prepare us because the season finale is coming.
Yep. It is coming.
And with that said, Typhoon. I think this is kind of like a traditional hurricane episode. Like the characters can get out of the house, so they need to make do with what they have at home. And of course, Louis finds the hot tub time machine because that's what it is, and brings in the cave duck Boba, again a reference to the old Ducktales.
This one's mostly really big because, this is, hey, Louis tries his schemes again, but, this time his schemes actually almost destroy the entire family by having them, like, all teleported at different times and creating a time hurricane that's bad. And, you see, like, Della, she's like, yeah, you apologized, but that's not good enough anymore.
Yeah, that's something I really like, that we actually get to see Della being a mom, because we saw connect with Dewey and Huey and even Webby, and Louis is the one that she actually tells them, no, you're grounded. I'm punishing you for something bad that you did.
I also like, everyone else like, oh, he apologized. All right, we'll forgive you. But it's like, she's like, no, you need to do more than that, An apology's nice. That's sweet and all, but it's your actions that speak louder than your words. And you've apologized before, and you need to do better.
Indeed.
That's kind of the big thing for this episode. Everything else is fun. It's enjoyable. But the big thing for this episode is...
It's the ending, yeah.
Yeah. It is Louis getting punished and seeing Della punish her son.
And the thing is that it does lead us to the next few episodes. Like, we basically get kind of a continuing story, because the next episode, Glumtales, starts with Louis being grounded, and it kind of ends with him eventually becoming the richest duck in the world due to
Another
plan.
scheme.
Yeah, another scheme
Because
basically.
this time
Yeah.
his scheme works out and it saves the family, but instead
It's
of
shortcut.
the only thing I kind of don't like about, because it's essentially kind of a continuation. It's a character arc and it's the ending for Louis' character arc in these 3 episodes. The only thing I would say I don't really like about it is in episode 23, the richest duck in the world. It's more so Scrooge that kind of teaches Louis, that finishes off the lesson, and not Della. And I wish it would have been
Yeah,
Della that had more
yeah.
of an impact on this one, right?
Now that you
Because
mention it, that's a good point.
you go through Glomtails, and Glomtails is another one where, I think Beaks does great in that one. He has a lot of good humor because he's not the focus. The focus is like all the villains coming together in Glomtails, and Louis helps Glomgold win at the end of it all, but then through his scheme shows that, oh, Glomgold is a fake name. He's not your real name, so actually I'm the richest duck in the world now, and he doesn't give Scrooge back his company or Glomgold or anyone back any of their money or anything, right? And like the one thing you have is Della telling Louis at the end of Glomtails to, hey, give Scrooge back his company, all's well. And you just see Louis hesitate, and we go straight into the next episode, and it's more of a focus on Louis and him living it up, and Della's kind of off doing a side story with everyone else, and it's Scrooge that finishes teaching Louis the lesson. That's the one thing that I would say that I have a problem with at the end of this, that it's just,
But at the same time, Della can't really relate to being the richest duck in the world. So
yeah, I get that,
someone.
but it's just, again, it's the lesson that was trying to be taught isn't really taught, and you would think the parent should be the one teaching it. But again, I get what they were going for, right? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I wish Della may have had more of a hand in it in some way. But I do think they kind of bring it back with the finale, with Louis and Della.
I also like in the richest duck in the world that Scrooge just thinks that he can make the entire fortune back by basically going back to where he started, which is shining shoes. And in a sense, it does bring him the fortune back because he ends up beating that monster by shining his shoes. So
Well,
that works.
again, right, I also love how Scrooge never learned the lesson, right? That, and how do you beat this curse of the richest duck in the world, right? It's Louis who figures out the lesson. It's Louis who learns that, it's humility that you need to show. And that's how you beat the curse, right?
Jaya, you have anything to add?
Thing is that how they update Bombi the zombie, which I think was very wise of them. In the original comics, basically Scrooge swindled a tribe out of their money. And in fact, Don Rosa decided to incorporate it into the life and times of Scrooge McDuck to show this was when Scrooge broke with his family, because they refused to accept this. And Bombi was sent as a curse, but mistook Donald for Scrooge since it had been a while. Here, Bombi is merely a sort of a stealth mentor that teaches humility. And I appreciate they made that change, because there are some things that you definitely don't want to put in a reboot.
Yeah.
That is true. So, anything else to say before we move on to the season finale?
I'll say, the intro for Glomtails, where it's Glomgold singing the Ducktales intro,
Yeah,
but Glomgold theme.
That's the thing I mentioned before.
That was very fun. Yeah, I know we mentioned it, but I'm just bringing it up here. It happens in Glomtails. It's extremely fun. And I know we kind of bunched 3 episodes together somewhat, but there's, again, all 3 are not bad by any means.
All
They're
three
very
are kind
good.
of
But they're very connected in a way, and they're very much, this kind of comes back to that thing I said before, how DuckTales isn't so much story focused as it is character arc focused, right? That you'll have characters and their different arcs are what leads you through the different episodes, and it's very enjoyable to see that. And this is kind of a big example of that. Like, these 3 episodes end off Louis' scheming and his get rich quick scheme idea, character arc, if you will.
Yes. So, Moonvasion, the season finale. Jaya, we kind of talked more than you about this, so you want to lead us into the finale?
Moonvasion, we find out a lot of things that, despite the fact that Donald worked really hard to get to Earth and warn his family, he didn't make it. So the Moonlanders invade here, and everyone tries their best to fight back, but it turns out that Lunaris has been watching Earth and Scrooge for a long time and dismantles all of his defenses as well as his allies. And at
Yes.
first, it seems that all is going to be lost. And then Lunaris reveals he's destroying everyone on Earth, including his own troops who are there, and stealing
Yeah.
from people's fridges. So, but then, Andella, meanwhile, decides to evacuate the boys because she doesn't want to lose them again. And they call her out for this, naturally, because ducks don't back down, as Uncle Donald say. This leads them to finding Donald stranded on a desert island with Mickey Mouse, is a watermelon,
By the way,
and
I
a
love.
beard.
I kind of like the fact that this is the only Mickey Mouse reference we get in the entire show. Like
That one got
next
me.
season, next season we actually get Goofy, but this is the only time we see Mickey Mouse in any form.
Spoilers, HC.
And by the time this episode aired, we already knew that the creators showed the teaser
I know.
image. So
I know. But still,
Yeah.
but yeah, I love the thing with Mickey. That got me, I'll admit. Mickey being Donald's Wilson. But go ahead, Jaya.
And I think it's one of the most satisfying episodes because Della, everyone's been tiptoeing around the fact that Della basically abandoned her kids. And when Louis called her out for it, it was after he nearly destroyed the time-space continuum, so Della brushed it off. But Donald really lets her have it for everything, just as she lets him have it for disappearing. But he comes off as better because he's the one who stayed and he only left by accident. And he tells her, "I missed you too, you big dummy," before hugging her.
Yeah,
so Donald actually tells his sister, "You messed up. You messed up big time. And yes, I still miss you, and I'm glad you're back. But also, I really hate what you did."
Yeah, and following that a bit, Della and Louis talk about this entire situation. Well, and you know what? How Della tries to be a model for him, and he a son to her. That was really good too.
Mm-hmm. And this is what I mean by they kind of brought the whole, Della punishing Louis and him learning his lesson, but not from her, but from Scrooge instead. I do love the fact that, they had this moment too, because I think, they saw like, hey, we need a bit more of Louis and Della here because we've not really had a lot of them yet. Louis mostly more so been learning from Scrooge, and he's kind of been getting a lot of his lessons from Scrooge, not so much Della, right? So it was nice to have them to have this, this really sweet connection with one another where, Louis sings the old song that, Della sung, and, she finds out that, Donald sang it to them all the time when they were little, right?
By the way, I love how when they throw the Mickey watermelon into the ocean, and then Gladstone and Fatney show up. And Gladstone's like, "This watermelon is really good," and you just see Donald, mouth wide open, like, no.
His poor friend. They ate his poor friend. Like, even more reason for Donald to hate Gladstone. He ate his poor friend.
Yeah. Also, I love when they ride Mitzi back and they kind of mimic the poses. And
oh yes.
Like, why am I Donald?
I love that. He's like, "I'm the Uncle Donald of our group." He's so distraught.
And also, but to what happens in Duckburg? So Scrooge and everyone else is trying to figure out a way to get Scrooge back into his mansion, and when Darkwing makes brings up his own plan, there's a point where when Fenton tells him, "Hi, I'm Gizmo Duck. What is your name?" Even though he just said what he's called, and Darkwing is like, ugh. Like this one, the two rivalry that doesn't really exist. It's just Darkwing hates Gizmo Duck for no reason, basically. And outside of his own ego, this is something I like, that they bring Drake Mallard in this, the ego that the original had. It's not just the actor playing the character. Like when they drive to the mansion and Darkwind is like, can you slow down just a bit? Can you slow down your driving just a bit? I want to look intimidated. And Scrooge is like, nobody is afraid of you. Who even are you?
And then they use that too because they get Drake to dress up as Scrooge and Scrooge take Darkwing's place.
Yeah.
And then you get to hear, David Tennant do the Darkwing intro, except Scrooge
Yeah.
version. That was
I
good.
am sharper than the Sharpies. I am smaller than the Smallies. I am Scrooge McDuck. Which, by the way, might have been a reference because there was an episode in the original, I think, where Scrooge was named the Masked Mallard, which is one of the nicknames that passed on to Darkwind Duck.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. So one of my favorite moments is when Scrooge is distraught because Lunaris is basically beating him in every step or turn, and Duckworth is like, I'm going to make preparations for you in the afterlife, and he phases through the flow, and Bickle is like, I don't like how he went down after he said that. It's like, what are you implying?
That was also a very good joke too, yeah.
But Jaya, for us Good Place fans, this might imply something considering a casting choice, if you know what I
Indeed.
mean.
Well, yes,
They're all going to the bad place. No ifs or buts.
we are. But the bad place isn't so bad if you have Sean on your side.
Well,
But on
as
the other
the season finale shows us, he's not on anyone's side because he wants to stop Scrooge and his family from going on any more adventures because Foul, which
Foul is evil for the sake of being evil.
Mm-hmm. But before that, we do get we got to the point of, well, we tried every plan, but they didn't try an evil scheme, which is where they bring Glumgold into the mix. And his scheme actually works because it's so idiotic that Lunaris didn't plan on it.
Yeah. I think it's fencers who say, don't fear a professional, fear an amateur because you don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, basically.
I also love the fact that Glumgold's entire scheme was actually a scheme within a scheme because he didn't really care about Lunaris, he only cared about getting his company back.
Yeah. And at the end, he's actually, I beat Scrooge McDuck, and Scrooge is like, we were on the same team.
Yeah.
Good old Glumgold.
It's like, yeah.
And I love when they fly the spaceship to fight with Lunaris in space. For one, awesome fight. Like, great animation, great task. And then when Della and Donald fight as they fly the ship, Scrooge is like, I miss this so much. He missed seeing his two nephews argue with one another. It's funny, but it's also wholesome in a sense.
And it's also important that both Della and Donald befriended Penumbra after she was suspicious of Della and found out with Donald's help about Lunaris' plan.
That's true.
Because when it seems that Lunaris has the jump on them, Penumbra nearly dies, saving their lives and turning the tide against him.
Yes.
Which was awesome, and that was why Donald ended up at the moon and worked out, and it was actually necessary. Obviously, it would have been fun for the viewers.
By the way, not to give anything away, but Jaya, since we have season 3 under our belt now, doesn't this one part makes, Manny look like he's holding a lot back?
Holding back, but you also have to consider he's a headless horseman. Horseless man horse.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but considering what we learn about him, it's like at some point you think he would have broke at some point. Whoever knows what we're talking about knows what we're talking about. We'll talk about it more next time. We promise. Sorry, Wolf.
Indeed, but To be fair, he was also holding back in the first season finale when he thought he and Little Bulb were dead and
Yes.
said farewell, brother, in Morse code. So this is kind of a running gag for him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that reminds me, like, Little Bulb in this one, like all the different Little Bulbs, and you have the Little Bulb who gets caught by one of the Moonlander people and
Yeah.
reveals their
And
plan. That's
there's the
kind
one that
of
has,
dark,
like,
because he
there's also
kills
the
himself.
one- yeah.
Like,
And
Jesus.
there's the one that has an anxiety attack, so another one slaps him and hugs him, and it's like, thank you, I needed it, and they keep going.
Little Bulb kind of like they like it's completely nothing getting like no voice work or anything. It's just all animation. Like it's dark though. It's like Jesus. Like poor Little Bulb.
Dude, Jesus.
Give Little Bulb a hug later. He went through heck.
Yes. So, but this all ends with the moon invasion is stopped. Everyone's happy, and Fowl vows to basically stop Scrooge McDuck and his family from adventuring anymore.
We
Where
even
would this go?
see. Well, I thought it was interesting because we see like it looks like Gandra D is a part of Fowl.
Yeah,
And you
she
see,
is.
it looks like Scrooge's investors are also a part of Fowl, apparently.
They are Fowl.
Well, yeah.
That's the twist.
Yeah. But again, it's very interesting because it's going to be interesting to see where some of these characters end up and everything. Considering, like, we've been through so much with them being background characters and kind of introduced to one or two of them here or there that now, here's full-on Fowl and what is Fowl going to do next season. So very interesting.
Exactly.
I'm very curious for season 3 and where it's going to go now.
Yes, but also Gandra D's part of Fowl, and are like, and you kind of want to smack Fenton more for letting her into Gyro's lab. It's
Yeah,
like,
but the poor guy didn't know.
didn't know, but still.
Again, pure being who you just want to shake some common sense into.
Yep. You want to be the Huey. Huey shouts common sense.
That is true. But I guess on that note, that's it. That's all for this episode of The Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What did you think about season 2 of Ducktales 2017? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and look forward to the season 3 review next week. Jaya, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Find me on my Medium account and personal website, and I'll send the link to HC so that you can all read. I did a season 1 recap, and I'll be talking about season 2 highlights this week.
Which are completely not the same as the podcast we just recorded.
Go read it. Very good, very enjoyable, as a lot of her other work is as well. I will never not praise some of her work. Very good, very enjoyable stuff to read.
Thank you.
Agreed. So with that said, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And I was Jaya.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.